I'm gonna move. We'll try it this way and see how it goes. My parents were dedicated atheists. They taught me that religion was dumb. They also had very high standards of behavior for me, which I could not meet because I was just a little kid. This was a great source of frustration to me. I kept trying to be good, but I kept failing. Now, also, I was an only child, and we moved around a lot. At the time that I'm thinking of, we were moving to Northern California. That's where the redwoods are, those beautiful trees that are so tall that if you are driving to live amongst them, and you're in the back of a Volkswagen, you have to actually lie down to see the tops of them out the window of the car, even if you're only 8 years old. When we got to California, I didn't really know anybody, and I just started wandering around the town, and I ended up in our city park, which was a redwood forest. I spent hours in that forest. I would imagine myself as the hero of great adventures, and I just soaked up the atmosphere of these incredible, beautiful trees. I really loved the previous speaker's description of the mosque and the light shining through it and the mosaics. It was the same kind of feeling that I had in the redwood forest. And that's where I first found God. I don't really remember a specific moment. You know, there wasn't a ray of light or a voice, but just as I clambered around those trees, I began to think, it's less implausible that somebody made this than that it just kind of happened. About the same time, I started going to school, I started meeting some people, and I had some little friends who were churchgoers, and they also kind of confirmed that maybe the whole idea of God wasn't as dumb as I had previously been led to believe. So they gave me a Bible, and I remember lying in the grass. Genesis was a page turner. Wow, what a story. This is great. Well, about halfway through Exodus, the whole thing really became a hard slog. But I was determined. You know, I was really lonely, and I was really frustrated with myself. And, you know, this God thing, you know, maybe there was something there for me. So I was going to figure it out. Now, I knew that my parents would not look kindly upon me seeking to understand about religion. So I would do things like this. So, Mom, I want to sleep over with Ruth on Saturday night. Her family invited me to sleep over. Well, that's probably fine. And I'm probably not going to be back until around noon because, you know, like, people like to sleep in late, and then they kind of have a special breakfast, and I don't know, it just would be easier if I just didn't come. Yes, I was probably the only child in the history of the United States of America to sneak around and tell lies so that I could go to church undetected. Okay, so I did that, you know, and I listened very carefully, and we would have little after-school Bible studies, and I started wearing my skirts longer, and I stopped swearing. I was becoming better already. I could tell. This was great. Then my parents told me we were moving again. We had only been in California 2 years. Are you serious right now? And I was so mad that I had a fight with God. And I said, look, you did not do what I wanted you to do for me, so I'm not doing anything else for you. I said all the bad words I could think of just to prove that we were through, and off I stomped to New Mexico. Well, the deserts of New Mexico, as you may imagine, could not hold a candle to the rainforests of Northern California. I was not happy with my parents. I was obviously, you know, done with God. It was a bad year. It was just 1 year. At the end of that year, my parents said we were moving again. I was actually okay with that. But the way they sold our next destination, well, we could go to Lubbock, Texas. So I guess instead we'll go to Lawrence, Kansas, which is in the middle of the Bible Belt, they said. Well, whoopee, that sounds great. So get in the Volkswagen again, off we go. But while we were driving to Kansas, I started thinking, you know, maybe I had been wrong to break up with God like I did. I mean, if God was God, he was everywhere, right? I mean, he probably was in New Mexico, just like he was in California. Apparently, he was in Kansas. So maybe I should try again. So, okay, you know, I decided to try to break my swearing habit, and I snuck an old falling apart Bible out of an auction box and hid it in my desk drawer where I could read it late at night. But really, my main theological education came from all the tracts and pamphlets that I used to pick up at the bungalow laundromat. Yes, there was a wide variety of information available to me there, and I studied it all carefully. If there was a decision form in the back, I made sure to sign it, but I just wasn't sure it was taking, you know? So one day, I was in my junior high school, and the Gideons, the ones with the hotel Bibles, they came and they were handing out New Testaments in the hallway. I know, in a public school. But it happened, and it was great for me because I was excited. I took this New Testament. Now I had something that was pocket size, that like pages didn't fall out of it every time I opened it, that I could carry around in my bag and not have to wait until lights out to, you know, sneak a look at it in the desk drawer. So I'm reading the New Testament, probably reading the words of Jesus for the very first time. And I just fell in love. Wow, you know, this man was, I mean, I was a little young for Matthew McConaughey, but, you know, this man was just everything that I wanted to be, you know? And then I hit the Sermon on the Mount, and we had a problem. Now, I know you might not all be familiar with the Sermon on the Mount, but here's kind of how it goes. Now, remember, you know, I already have all my parents' standards, you know, like you shouldn't steal the milk money, and, you know, you shouldn't throw out the newspaper until everybody's read it, and all these different things, you know, that were very complicated. And then I had everything I'd picked up in different churches I'd visited, and all the, you know, intensive information from the laundromat. And now I've got, so I was going to tell you, you know, in case you don't know what's in the Sermon on the Mount. So what Jesus does there is he says, okay, well, you know that you're not supposed to like hit people or cuss them out or kill them. He says, well, guess what? You're not even supposed to be angry with them. Okay. And then he says, hey, you know you're not supposed to sleep around. Oh, you're not even supposed to want to. And so I'm like, whoa, now I am really under the pile. You know, there is no way I can live up to these standards. But, you know, I'm persevering because I don't know what else to do. So I just keep reading. And I start to notice something about Jesus's friends. Like when he came up to, let's say it's Peter, you know, he comes up to Peter and he doesn't say, hey, Peter, you know, I would like you to honor your parents and don't ever be angry and don't hurt anybody and don't lie and don't steal. And if that all works out, you know, then I guess, you know, you can be my friend. He came up to Peter, and you can look this up. He came to Peter and he said, follow me. That's it. Peter dropped everything and followed him. That was the whole transaction right there. So I'm like, well, that's not really, you know, what I thought was how it worked. I kept reading. So one day, I was in math class, great place to get a theological education, and I was reading this portion. It's in Matthew 10, and Jesus says in these words, he says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden." Yes, I am exhausted from trying so hard to be good. And he says, I will give you rest. Oh, well, you're the one who gave me the problem in the first place. You're the one with, all these rules, so what's up with that? But he keeps talking. He says, take my yoke on you and learn from me, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I'm thinking, I must have misunderstood something here before that. So I started to think, maybe this whole, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect, maybe that's not the burden that I was supposed to take on. Maybe Jesus and I can kind of do a swap, and he can take the burden of, trying and failing, and he can take that burden of being perfect, because as far as I could tell, he was pretty good at it. And then I could take this yoke or this burden just like he gave to Peter, just follow me. So in that math class, Jesus asked me to follow him, and I said yes. Now, I didn't really tell you about what kind of shape I was in before that, right up until that time, but let me just say this. I was 13. I didn't like myself very much. Do we really have to go on? There was some kind of, if I had lived a few, more recently, I would be like in black head to toe with the eyeliner and the lipstick, so it was that kind of attitude. But after that math class, I could just feel my 13-year-old existential angst lifting. I could feel a new desire to live entering in. Now, I did realize that I was going to have to level with my parents. So we had that conversation. My dad turned red in the face. My mom said it was just a phase, but somehow we all survived. It's fine. We're fine now. But sometimes I still will kind of get into this, trying and failing, got to do more kind of thing. And when that happens, I just remember that 13-year-old, all she said she was going to do was follow Jesus. Thank you.
Gretchen Cole, everyone.